Hey everyone, it is Friday, January 4th, and this is episode number 7 of Super GameTalk Turbo HD Remix. I'm your host, Capanius, and as always, I am joined by the sage Vertigo Tea Party.
Vertigo!
And also, I am here with Mr. Hanky, the Christmas Poo. Man, I forgot his name.
Merry Christmas!
So, Mr. Hanky, I'm so pleased that you could join us this week. What games have you been playing?
Well, this week...
Oh, okay, Vertigo Tea Party, you go.
He had to...
He had
to put toys in kids' mouths. So this week, really, I've been playing the same games as usual for my Let's Plays. The only different one that I've played, I think, was called Quarries of Scred. It's a very retro type game. In a nutshell, you play as a miner, and you have to dig down and grab gems and then take those gems back and refine your ore, refine the gems. And with that money, you buy lasers and bombs so that you can blow up the rocks and the dirt so that you can get it more gems.
Those sound like wise reinvestments.
Yes.
Lasers and bombs. That's what I try to put my money into.
That's the big thing right now. That's what stock investors don't want you to know.
Yes.
Click here to find out more. And it's about lasers and bombs, apparently. But it's an interesting game. It's very retro. Like if you've played like the really old school games, like the Snipe Hunter or whatever it was called, where you have the ASCII characters.
Oh yeah,
It's very, very like one step up from that. In fact, some of the visual options are like CGA and
nice
green screen. It makes everything green, like the really old.
Now, will it actually run on my CGA monitor that I have at home? Okay,
it actually might. It's very small. And if you just look for it's Quarries of Scred.
It's on Steam?
No, it is not on Steam.
Okay.
I think you have to buy it directly from his website. It's just by one person. And he had sent me a review copy.
Cool.
So if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll have a link to it below this video. And if you're not, like I said, just search for Quarries, Quarries of Scred. Scred.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah, it is. And no other new games I played, but I just want to mention again, Shadow Warrior is awesome, and everybody should go buy it.
I like that. I still need to check that one out.
If you like old school FPSs, it's definitely worth picking up. It's old school in that it's fast-paced action. You pick up health. There's no regenerating health crap. You pick up armor. There's lots of like well-hidden secrets. I'm pretty thorough when I check a level, and then sometimes I'll finish a level and be like, you got 8 of 16 secrets. It's like, wow, what the? It's like, I thought I was incredibly thorough. And it just feels really good, but it's modernized too, in that you have like a leveling up system. And like you have chi powers, and you have inherent abilities, like cast abilities, and you can upgrade your weapons with money. It takes all the good stuff from the old FPS and then it modernizes it in a good way. It's just it's a lot of fun. It's a little bit easier a little bit too easy on the higher difficulty settings, especially if you kind of abuse. Some of the powers are just really, really strong. But other than that, and the boss fights are a little weak. But other than that, it's a blast to play. If I retroactively put it on my Games of the Year list for 2013.
So now it's going to be on the 2014 list. Best game from 2013, right?
Yes, it will be my best better late than never. Better late than never list.
Cool.
But that's pretty much all I played this week.
All right, yeah, I've kind of been in a similar, finishing up some of the games I started. I finished Pokemon Y, so got all 8 badges.
Did you get all the Pokemans?
I've not gotten all the Pokemans yet. I have more Pokemans to acquire. But I have gotten all 8 of my gym badges and defeated the 4 elite leaders after Victory Road, and then defeated the grand champion of Pokemon Land. So,
oh wow,
that story's all tied up.
You could have made all that stuff up, and maybe you did because I know nothing about the Pokemans.
Well, I'm pretty sure that whoever came up with that stuff made it up about as fast as I said
probably.
It. So. It's all pretty silly. But
who's the main boss? I don't know. The Supreme Grand Poobah of Pokeland. All right, whatever. The kids will buy that.
It all sounds really dumb, but it's like the heroine of video games. So, I've I haven't quite put it down yet. I still got more Pokemans to get, so we'll see how that goes. I did get Pokemon White 2, which is the one that came out before this, which I can get more Pokemans with. So the addiction continues.
But I wonder if Skylanders will be like the next generation Pokemon.
It lacks one crucial difference, is that you don't catch the Skylanders. You just buy the Skylanders. And so it doesn't give you that like gratifying.
They've made a ton of money though.
Yes,
did you see that?
Yes.
Like they were like second or third.
Yeah,
they're making money hand over fist. Like as funny as like I had never heard of it before the Xbox One show, and I played it and I liked it, but I wouldn't be going out and buying $50 worth of little figures.
A lot of those things that appeal to like the kind of like 9-year-old to 12-year-olds, like if it catches on at school, it just critical mass. Like the kids that don't have it have to get it so they can talk to the kids that have it, and it's just like it's crazy.
It's like Pogs all over again.
But I think Disney Infinity is actually in a better spot than
Skylanders. I heard they're killing it too.
Yeah, because that's doing well, and like Disney's kind of playing it smart. Like they've put out the characters that are kind of like that don't have a lot of appeal right now, and so that they're gonna do like the whole vault thing, like they do with their movies. So like every year, oh my gosh, this new character is out for Disney Infinity. They're holding back the good characters so that they're always in the limelight. And so then when they finally get through all the Disney characters, guess what they have left? Marvel and Star Wars. So there's like a never-ending cash cow for Disney Infinity. We've only seen the beginning. I mean,
yeah, they're killing it like they killed that Star Wars game. Hey-oh!
Nice.
Yeah, if you had not heard, they apparently just let go of that trademark. It was Star Wars 13.
Oh, yeah, and they've been doing a lot of weird crap with the Marvel licensed games, too. Like, have you seen them delisting all the Marvel vs. Capcom? And, like, there was another Capcom property, but they just delisted these downloadable titles. So if you want Marvel vs. Capcom 2 or Marvel vs. Capcom 3 for games on demand to download, sorry. It's no longer available. They're just like, nope.
And they've never said anything. Them nor Capcom have said anything, right?
No, they haven't released any. But I guess it stands to reason that the licensing contracts expired and they just decided not to renew them.
Is there anybody out there that denies or is in denial that Disney is just a bunch of scumbags?
Mark.
Yes. You're called out.
Yes. I shouldn't have. Maybe I shouldn't have put his last name. You can bleep that out. It'll sound even more intimidating if you bleep out his last name.
It might. So, tell your wife I said hi, Mark.
Yes. There's a guy I work with named Mark that is in love with all things Disney. He frequents Disney World. He travels down there about once a year, and he has cardboard cutouts of Mickey Mouse that he makes out with every day now.
Should we talk about his Mickey Mouse his Tinkerbell credit card?
See, this is fun. We just need to talk crap about people on the podcast. Like,
it's like, who cares about the game crap?
Here's a new section. Friends we know in real life that we talk crap about on the podcast. It's a good way to like measure if anybody listens, so they can be like, I can't believe you said that about me. Or
well, it'd be better if you talk to him at work and be like, "Hey, did you catch the latest?" Say, "Oh yeah, I caught it." If he doesn't say anything, you're like, "You lying son."
Yep.
But Disney sucks.
Yep.
Well,
especially don't get me started about copyright law. Like
God,
all of the like restrictive, oppressive copyright law, you can thank Mickey Mouse for that. Like, it's ridiculous. So I guess back to the topic at hand. Pokemans. I've been playing them. I will continue to play them. I also played Kickbeat this week.
What's that one about?
It's from Zen Studios. They're the company that make pinball. Oh no, Zen Pinball.
Oh yeah, I like those games actually.
Yeah, they're pretty good. But this originally came out for PS3 and Vita last year, but they are re-releasing it as Kickbeat Steam Edition is the full title. So it's a rhythm-based game that's kind of a mashup with fighting games. So you get prompts to press buttons at the right time based on the song you're listening to, and your character is like fighting people as you're pressing buttons. It's kind of a new approach to rhythm games. I actually posted a review on my blog, capane.us, capane.us. So there's a review up there. I gave it a 6.5. Like, it was fun. If you're really into rhythm games, there's not a ton of rhythm games out right now because that genre is kind of
dead,
stale because of the oversaturation of Rockman and Guitar Hero. So a lot of studios are like, no, we're not making a rhythm game. But if you're a rhythm game savant such as I, then you should check it out because it's really fun. Now, there is a feature that they say like, oh, you can import your own music to, like you can use any music from your, you just need an MP3. But that importer is not good. Like, it's not automated at all. You import the song, and then it's up to you to calculate the BPM by listening to the song and then hitting the button at the right time.
Oh, wow.
So now it knows the beat of the song. And even then, it doesn't chart any notes based on actual, like, musical progression or notes. It's just on the beat. So it's just, like, it's all percussion-based. It's all rhythm-based. There's no melody to it, like, which is part of the fun is mapping out, like, the timing of the notes, not just the beat, because there's syncopated notes and different like things like that. But it's good though. Like the soundtrack is just kind of a hodgepodge of stuff that I really I mean, music is subjective, so you could really dig this stuff that I'm about to crap on. But anyway, it's full of stuff like POD and Linkin Park and like stuff like that, like new metal and rap rock, and it's just like that's not stuff I'm into, but it has some good electronic stuff and it has some decent dubstep stuff. And if dubstep makes you angry, this is not the game for you because there's some dubstep in there. All right, it's gonna happen. But it doesn't offend me, and I see a lot of people that get worked up about dubstep. I'm not a dubstep apologist. I have somehow maintained a neutral opinion about dubstep.
I mean, dubstep is garbage, but I don't think anybody questions that. But it depends. Like, there's plenty of games where there's music, and I definitely would never listen to this music out. I would never just listen to that type of music generally. But within the game settings, oh, I love this.
There's a lot of songs that you would be embarrassed to listen to outside of the game, but work in the game.
So like K-pop?
There's no K there, man. It would be good to have some K-pop or J-pop. Like that would be good in that game, but there's none in there.
No,
I'm saying in a rhythm game that would be fun.
I don't even think it's good to have K-pop in a torture chamber.
Okay, well, I think in a rhythm game that kind of like just bubblegum stupid pop would be fun, like because it's just super upbeat and it's all about like fast beats, so it'd be pressing buttons, going crazy. I guess I missed that you were joking. So yeah, forget K-pop, man.
Yeah, K-pop.
That sucks.
Oh man.
But Kickbeat's all right. Like if you're into rhythm games, check it out. It's definitely one of those games where
is it DS only?
This is on Steam.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so it's got the song importer. It's got Steam achievements, Steam trading cards, all that stuff. And it's on sale the first week, so it's $9. So it's not super expensive or anything, and it's fun if you're into that kind of game, but skippable if you're not.
Yeah. I wonder how many people. I would be curious to see how much sales are improved by having Steam achievements and trading cards. Because I have actually seen people in forums say, I would buy this, but it doesn't have Steam achievements, which I think is ridiculous.
That is pretty dumb. The thing is, that might be in the equation, but I would never publicize it. Like
your secret thing.
Yes.
It's like, but
it doesn't have Steam achievements. But yeah, like, and the thing is, that stuff is pretty easy to implement. Like the Steam API, where you plug in achievements and stuff. Like if your game's written the right way, it would take one developer like 3 or 4 days to plug all that stuff in. So if you're making a game on Steam, you need to do that stuff because there are bullet points that people mention in reviews, like, oh, it supports this, and this, So why not do it? So that's why you see a lot of, it was called out as a bullet point on the press release. Like, it's got this feature, it's got Steam achievements. So I think people really do look at that stuff.
Man, if Valve ever had some kind of gamer points, like I think that would blow up the Steam achievement thing even worse.
Yeah, that's what's interesting is that Xbox has Gamerscore. PlayStation has trophies with different tiers, and you have a level associated with it. I guess Steam does have a level, but that level is not calculated based on your achievements.
Yeah, those are like 100% different. That's 100% trading cards.
They need to put an XP weight on each achievement. And then all of a sudden, oh, guess what? You gained 20 levels. Because we rolled out this achievements patch whereby achievements have XP associated with them.
I think that would be smart money-wise for them. Yeah. But in fairness, I don't think it would work. Because some games only... the games or developers are very free to do whatever they want with achievements. And they don't have to say, you have to have X number of achievements, and they have to total up to 1,000 points. Well,
they could make those constraints with XP. Your game can only dish up 1,000 XP. How do you want to slice it?
Yeah, and I guess if you wanted to just have very few achievements, then you had 10 achievements, all of them would just be worth 100.
Yeah.
But then Shadow Warrior has 93 achievements. It's insane.
Team Fortress 2. Has some ridiculous achievements. Spend 500 hours on this one class or something crazy like that.
But that one would have to be one achievement equals half a point.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think they just don't want to bother with that. I think they're just kind of we're just going to...
I don't know. That seems odd to me because I feel like it's something that gamers like, and Valve is not against doing things just because gamers like it. You know what I mean? They'll do they gamify stuff all the time. I mean, this whole trading cards thing obviously is a huge moneymaker for them.
Oh yeah.
Because every transaction they keep a penny at least.
I wonder what person came up with that.
An
economist.
And it's
now gotten a pretty
they hired this economist.
Oh, did they?
And 6 months later, trading cards roll out. It's not a coincidence. They have they have probably multiple economists at this point, but they have economists on retainer that basically come up with economic theory and what can we come up with? And the trading cards came out after they got this economist he's got a blog too.
I've got to think that they've talked about the score thing then. Score or XP or whatever it is.
I'm sure they have had this conversation and they've got some reason that they're not doing it because it doesn't seem... I mean, it would take work, but it seems to me like Valve could do it if they wanted to. It's just a low priority for them.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's just something they don't want to put on the developers too, at all. They don't want to... I mean, I guess they could make it easy and just, you say, if you have 10 achievements, they're automatically worth, 100 apiece. If you have 1,000 achievements, they're worth 1 point apiece.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe, I guess they could do that. But then you kind of devalue some of your achievements.
Or just going forward, achievements can have XP associated with them. But these achievements in the past don't have any.
I mean, I do have to admit, I like the freedom that the developer's given. Because, with the Shadow Warrior, again, you've got 93 or 94 achievements. Mm-hmm. And they decided, we're going to go hog wild with this. And they gave all kinds of different achievements for different difficulty levels and all this other stuff. And I feel like if they had to go back and do it all again, with Shadow Warrior 2, and say, okay, well, now when you make achievements, they have to total up to this point value. And obviously you want the harder ones to be worth more. You don't want, start the game, pick up your first weapon off the ground to be worth the same as beat it on hardest difficulty without taking damage. Mm-hmm. That takes away some of I would think, takes away some of the feeling of accomplishment of it a little bit. Not a whole lot, but a little bit, if they're worth exactly the same. So, I don't know. I would love to be a fly on that wall when they're having those conversations.
Seriously, man. We need to get a bug in Valve and just figure out what's going on there.
Release a bunch of behind the scenes info until Gabe showed up.
Yes.
It's you boys need to come with me.
I'm sure they have people sweep the place for bugs all the time, bug detectors. Yep.
Yeah.
So I've also been playing a lot of Super Nintendo games. And that is because I got this awesome little device in the mail called a Super Everdrive. So this is something I ordered a while back, actually, with some Christmas money I got. But what the Super Everdrive does is it takes an SD card and you put it in the little slot for the cartridge, and it will play any ROMs off of that SD card on your Super Nintendo, as if, it's perfect. Like, it's not, I mean, technically it's considered hardware emulation because it is writing the ROM to an FPGA that is then emulating the cart in your Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
But it is bit perfect. Like, it's the same electrical signals and everything. So what's cool about that is, like last night, me and my wife played Tetris Battle Gaiden, which is this like crazy Japanese version of Tetris that I've heard about and I've always wanted to play. But up until now, playing it would require the Japanese cart, which is like on eBay for like $100, and a Japanese Super Nintendo, which isn't that rare, but I'd have to import it probably.
Yeah.
So I'd be like $200 in to play this Japanese game. But now with this Everdrive, I can play any Japanese game I want. Now, a lot of Japanese RPGs are unplayable because they require a lot of text. But part of what's fun about Tetris Battle Gaiden is that we have to figure out what's going on. So there's no English in the game, but it's like head-to-head Tetris, and you pick your character. So it's kind of like Super Puzzle Fighter in that it's head-to-head and you can like mess with the other person.
Yeah.
But as you're clearing lines that have these special like circles on them, you build up your like ability. You build up a power like bar to use spells that you can cast on the other person.
Yeah. And
each character has unique abilities to either help yourself out or interfere with your opponent.
Yeah.
And so like when you press the button to do it, all the like your Tetris piece spins around and then something happens. And so we're just trying to figure out like, what did that do? Like, what's happening? Like, and so it was pretty cool because like I've played Tetris all my life and I'm pretty good at it. And like we were messing with each other. It was like even back and forth. Like you basically play best out of 3. So I won 1 best out of 3 and she won 1 best out of 3. So I think tonight we might settle once and for all who's best at Tetris Battle Gaiden. But that's a really fun game.
Hyper divorce generator battle.
Exactly. But I mean, you could check it out on an emulator.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of fun, and I could play games like Earthbound now without having to buy a copy of Earthbound.
Oh my god,
Yes.
you dirty pirates!
Yes.
Nintendo is losing their shirts because of you.
You know what? If Nintendo offered Earthbound on
For $500
Yes.
million, you buy it.
I would buy it. But I get, this is actually where my argument falls apart because they actually do offer it on a Wii U. But I'm not going to buy a Wii U for a Super Nintendo game.
For a
I'm sorry.
15, 20
I'm
year old
sorry.
game.
I do not attest to be perfectly right in this argument. I am technically doing something illegal with my Super Everdrive, but in my defense, it's a lot of fun. So that should hold up in court.
Court is adjourned.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
good enough for me.
And in other news, I'm afraid to say that the arcade bug has bitten me once again. Yes. So it seems like every once in a while I get bit by the arcade collecting obsession bug. And I actually went on one of the forums I frequent, looked at, what people are selling, because every once in a while you can get a good deal. And somebody was like, I'm selling this CPS2 board. It doesn't work, $20. And so I guess a little backstory for people not in the know with arcade collecting, but CPS2 is a Capcom platform that in the mid 90s they made a ton of games like Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, X-Men vs Street Fighter, Super Puzzle Fighter 2, the Dungeons and Dragons brawlers. There's a lot of really good ones. But the CPS2 system had a suicide battery in it, so that if this battery died, basically the encryption key that would make it run would be lost and it wouldn't work. And so there's a lot of copies out there that just have died.
Thanks, Capcom.
Yes. So Capcom basically but they did this in an effort because to keep bootleggers from bootlegging their games, which happened a lot.
Yeah.
Like people would make fake counterfeit copies of these games and not just sell them to people, they would sell them to arcade operators.
Yeah.
And so they would, these games might cost $1,000 or something because, back in the day, coin-op games were an industry. They're kind of dead now. But there's a lot of money to be made in these devices, and so if an arcade operator could get it for half the price and make the same amount of money, of course he would do it. And so bootleg arcade PCBs were a real problem. So Capcom did a really good, there were no bootleg CPS2 games. So what they did worked, but unfortunately is a huge blow to video game preservation.
Yeah.
But luckily, about 5 years ago, somebody cracked the encryption on it and released this, I guess, set of ROMs that you could Phoenix these boards. So I got the board. It was $20. Normally these boards sell for $100 at least. I got the board in, burned a couple ROMs, and it's good as new. So the game was X-Men Children of the Atom, which is an okay game. I'm not really big into the Marvel fighting games until the crossover ones hit. Like Marvel Superheroes versus Street Fighter or X-Men versus Street Fighter are really good. But Marvel Superheroes, X-Men Children of the Atom, they just don't do it for me. But I found out that I can then burn more ROMs and convert this game into a Street Fighter Anniversary Edition PCB, which is this mashup of all the Street Fighter 2 games. So you pick your character and you pick if you want World Warrior, Hyper Fighting, Championship Edition, Super Turbo, or just Super. And it's this board that sells for $400. So now I can get this board for $40
nice.
With ROMs. So all that stuff is a really long, complicated rabbit trail, but it's the kind of stuff that I've find myself digging into all the time, learning about all these random, ways to convert arcade games or to, store or burn EPROMs and all this stuff. So I've been having a lot of fun with that. It's not it's like a game in and of itself is figuring out how all this stuff works. But probably lost the 2 or 3 people that were still listening to this podcast as I babbled about arcade stuff. So, but look for that in my other podcast. Travis talks by himself about arcades. But I think that's pretty much all the games I played this week. So we had some topics that we picked out that we wanted to talk about. You want to kick off the first one?
Well, first of all, I heard that you got a pretty swanky gig.
Oh yeah, actually, I got a new a gig at Retro Magazine. So I will be a contributing writer for Retro Magazine. For the most part, it's going to be the online content. That website should launch probably next week sometime, and I've got an article in the hopper that should hit that week.
Do you know what the URL is going to be?
It's readretro.com.
Readretro.com?
Yeah. So that's the website for Retro Magazine. And if you're unfamiliar with Retro Magazine, a quick summary is that this was a kickstarted magazine, and the idea was to bring back a physical magazine for gaming enthusiasts, because I was brought up, looking through an EGM or a GamePro. I preferred EGM.
GamePro.
Yeah, GamePro sucked.
Nintendo Power, man.
But I miss those days of getting a magazine in the mail and just reading it cover to cover. I would read the letters section. I would read everything. I loved it. And so they're making this retro magazine, which is kind of specializing in older games, basically covering the games that we read growing up, and then because there is a retro magazine in the UK that is actually has a decent circulation, and so the same model just doesn't exist over here. If you want the UK version of retro, you have to go to Barnes and Noble, and one issue is $10.
Oh, wow!
So it's because you have to import it, but retro is going to be I don't know if it's bi-monthly, every other month release. So 6 issues per year. And you can go there and subscribe to get the physical version. You can get just the digital version. But there will also be a website, where we'll be contributing to quite a bit. And hopefully I'll get some of my stuff in print. And it's going to be a lot easier for me to get, reviews up and get them posted. So look for that to launch sometime next week, probably. Readretro.com.
How much? Do you know how much the subscriptions are for digital, or have they set those yet?
They have set them. I've got the first issue actually. Issue 1's already hit. That was January, February, and so March, April will be the next issue. So, yeah, I'm not from. I don't remember what it is. I kickstarted it, so I got in for a year.
Yeah. So, what will they talk about other than? Is it just? You said that you'll be able to get review copies of games.
Yeah.
So is it going to be mostly retro and indie games, or is it all games with a focus on older games?
Yeah, so it's old and new games, but a lot of the new games are going to be retro inspired.
Right.
Because there's a lot of indie games that draw inspiration from retro either mechanically or aesthetically.
Right.
And so there will be an emphasis on those type of games. And for me, I really want to use this as a bigger platform to write more articles about topics that are really important to me, like game preservation and kind of games perspective from a cultural standpoint, how games are a part of our culture, and that I feel like they are still kind of regarded as just disposable entertainment, but I feel like the concept of games is something we've done even before video games, like, we look at board games or chess, all these, basically the ways we exercise our mind and compete, games are just an extension of that. And so I really am interested in stories about people that are taking the time to preserve different aspects of gaming. And usually these are people that are doing it under the radar or illegally, because a lot of game preservation techniques are technically piracy. But these people are helping us preserve our games more effectively than any official channels are. So I find kind of that section of games interesting. And there, a quick plug for that. Did we talk about that Outlanders documentary last week? It's a Kickstarter going on right now, but it's Area 5 is making a series of documentaries, actually.
I don't remember if we did, but plug them again.
Yeah, I'm going to quick plug. These guys are halfway there. It's Area 5. They're the people that did I Am Street Fighter and the Last of Us documentary. And so they're a really good established video production company that have completed projects. And the idea for this is that they wanted to cover gamer culture, but there's so many different subsets of gamer culture that, one documentary is not really the correct approach.
Right.
Because however you slice it up, you're excluding a type of gamer. So this will be a series of documentaries, like an anthology, where each episode covers a particular type of gamer. So one episode could be about the speedrun community. One episode could be about the arcade community. One episode could be about the fighting game community. There's all these different subsets of gamers, but
the Xbox Live community.
Yes, exactly. The Call of Duty community.
Oh, boy. I look forward to that episode.
But there's all these different subsets of gamers, but at the end of the day, we're all people playing video games. And so there is both a unifying connection, but there's also pockets of communities. And I like the idea of a cohesive anthology of documentaries that just focuses on one topic at a time.
Yeah.
So they are about 10 days in and halfway there. So they still need you get a huge spike at the beginning, and they're done with that spike.
Yeah.
So they really still need support. But that it sounds like it's going to be a really interesting project. They did a really good job with I Am Street Fighter. Now, yeah. So back to the original.
Real quick before you go, is there somewhere you can see their projects?
If you go to Kickstarter, they have the video for the Outlanders documentary.
But can you where can you go if you wanted to see I Am Street Fighter or?
Actually, I Am Street Fighter in its entirety is on YouTube now.
Okay.
So you can watch that in 1080p. It's a really good documentary about the culture and history of the Street Fighter games, and it's a pretty amazing cross section of people that those games have influenced. Whether you're people playing those games, whether you're people making art for those games, or making the music for those games. There's a it's got a big impact on gamers. But that one's really good. I haven't seen the Last of Us documentary. It was a making of documentary that they were kind of commissioned to by Naughty Dog.
Yeah.
I think it came with a collector's edition or something, but I haven't seen that one. But that would be pretty interesting to see too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, all that to say, I'll be writing for Retro Magazine, so keep an eye on that site and subscribe, and it should be fun.
And he said, do you think the site will go live, at least the digital version, you think probably will go live next week?
Yeah. The site will go live next week.
It's around February 1st.
Yeah.
Ish.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there's going to be way more content on the site than basically the magazine is going to be a snapshot of what's best from the website. And I think there's going to be a lot of exclusive stuff to the magazine as well. But I've got a lot of ideas in the future rolling around. I've got like a set of interviews I want to do with different people that have like different arcade and preservation projects. And so I'm trying to get some of those lined up, and it should be pretty awesome. So looking forward to that.
Cool.
Yeah. And I guess with that said, what was another topic we wanted to talk about?
This week, and I've actually wanted to talk about this since we very first started, but this is a topic that kind of popped in my head, is that it's such an amazing time to be a gamer right now. And the thing is, we have all this backlog of games, so it's not like you missed something, right? It's not like, well, we missed out on those SNES games and NES and Genesis games. You can still play all those, and there's even more ways to play them, whether it be legal or not. Notwithstanding, you can play them, on your current systems. You can buy them a lot of times. There's these hack job portables that you could make them work. You can do it on your phone. Mm-hmm. It's if you have a real phone like an Android, you can play it on an Android phone. So and we have all these. I
don't really understand what you just said, but continue.
But and we have all these great AAA games that look phenomenal graphically, and you also have all these indie games which are doing all these different things, retro style, and just trying different things. And so we have this wonderful choice of what you want to play. No matter what you want to play, pretty much it's out there. Mm-hmm. But
it's easy to get. It's cheap. The prices have been
lowered.
The
sales are insane.
Yeah.
When you see people complaining about a 50-hour game costing more than $25, we live in a great time, right? I mean, think of the DuckTales, right? You can blow through the game of DuckTales in an hour and a half. And that game was $50 or $60 on release. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine them trying now to release a game that was 2 hours long for $50 and $60? No. People would go insane.
Remember E.T.?
I do. I had E.T. I had E.T. But, so it's absolutely, there's been no better time, unarguably, to be a gamer than it is now. But the flip side is to be a developer, in particular an indie game developer, it's kind of a crappy time. Because there are so many developers out there now that your competition is huge. You really have to. It seems like it's a combination of just having a great game, and you have to get that word of mouth going, because there's plenty of good indie games out there that for whatever reason didn't hit the big wave of publicity from either game journal sites or from big gaming personalities like Total Biscuit or PewDiePie or Northern Lion or people like that. Those people really help, and those sites really help to get a game popular. But if they don't get picked up by a lot of those big personalities, they totally fly under the radar. And this applies to things like Kickstarter. It used to be, if you had a halfway decent Kickstarter game and a halfway realistic goal, it wasn't too hard to make your goal. Now, I've seen games that look great, and they're polished up, graphically they look good. gameplay wise, they look good. They'll have a demo, and they won't make their funding because there's just so much competition out there. In particular, this is one I always go back to, one called Citizens of Earth. It blows my mind that game did not get funded because they made a very Earthbound type game, which I've never played Earthbound. But my understanding is very, very Earthbound-like, which a lot of people go crazy about. Graphically, it looked great. They had like a 2-hour-long demo. It was fun to play, and their goal wasn't anything ridiculous. I forget what it was. But they had a very realistic goal, and they didn't make it. Because none of the... I think they were mentioned offhandedly by some of the game sites and some of the gaming personalities, but they weren't really clinched onto.
I think they did that Kickstarter at like the worst time for games because like there was this huge uptake, this huge wave when like anything could get funded on Kickstarter. Yeah. If you just anything, you threw it up there. And then there was this moment when Double Fine raised $3 million that people are like, this is pretty crazy. Like, you know, do we really need to be so automated that we support everything that's decent on Kickstarter? And then at the same time, there was Kickstarter projects that people didn't deliver at all. Like they got abandoned. People didn't get anything for the money. And those stories started hitting. And I think the bubble, I don't know if it necessarily popped, but there was this huge kind of deflate on Kickstarter uptake. And that's when they launched a Kickstarter. And I feel like they had the worst time. I think it's recovered some. Like people are starting to have a little more trust in things, especially now that Broken Age has finally hit, Banner Saga's hit. Like a lot of the examples of huge Kickstarter games are coming through, and they actually
Wasteland
deliver.
Is coming out soon.
And so I think people they're I guess reestablishing their trust in these games on Kickstarter. But that game, if they launched now, I think they would have made it. I think it was more about timing than anything.
I think that's part of it, but I still think that if a lot of the big names would have got behind it, it would have helped. Though, to counter that, I will say I was very surprised that, and I can't remember what game it was, but there were some big YouTubers behind this game. And like I said, it's killing me because I totally forgot it. Was Paranautical Activity was never Kickstarter, I don't think.
I don't know. I don't think...
I think it was some roguelike. I think it was Rogue Legacy, maybe. I think maybe that was it. But there was some game that like they didn't make much more than their goal, and their goal was really low.
Yeah.
And I remember being really surprised by that because Northern Lion was pimping it pretty big, and some other big YouTubers were pushing it. So and when they first announced their Kickstarter and they announced their goal, I was like, oh well, that's a done deal. They'll get that on day one. And they didn't. And like I said, they did meet the goal, but it wasn't by a whole lot. And I just remember thinking, wow, I was like, I can't believe. Again, it feels like if they'd done it a year prior, it would have been like, boom, like funded.
I think the amounts on those Kickstarter games are all over the place. Like I see some that I just feel like that's way too low. Like if you want to hire, like if you're doing it for under $200,000 and you're hiring developers full time, like that gets expensive.
Yeah,
if you want to pay a year's salary for a developer, like that, is expensive, especially if you're developing on the West Coast.
Or $800,000 for an MMO.
Yeah. But like Broken Age hit $3-something million, and that was like at least 12, 15 times what they were asking for. And so some of them will shoot way past, and then some of them get this like they'll make it, and then everybody will stop like trying. People will stop plugging at places like, okay, they made it, and some places barely make it. Like it's crazy. There's one that I actually it was on Indiegogo, but it was Yaragasura. It's a fighting game.
Oh yeah.
It was a second version of this fighting game, but it was a bunch of ex-SNK employees.
Oh okay.
Basically the people that worked on King of Fighters, and I was like, you have SNK and Capcom employees. Like the art looked really good. Like this is a no-brainer. They barely made it. Like they made it, but they weren't asking all that much. But it didn't get a ton of publicity either.
It does. I really feel like publicity is a big one. Like it really seems like for whatever reason, again, the personalities and the news sites just pick up and just pimp certain ones.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that do really well. And you get a scenario like with Double Fines where they're raising so much money, they get more press, which gives them more money, which gives them even more press because, they've broke. What's that game that has like some ridiculous number of money? Star something.
Oh man,
it's not on Kickstarter, but it's raised like over 10 million or something.
Yeah, it's crazy because if you want to buy into that universe, like you have to buy a ship, and some people are spending thousands of dollars on this digital ship that will spaceship that'll be in this game when it launches.
Yeah,
but it's like that's insane to me. Like I don't think there's a game that exists that I would put $1,000 into, like at all. And this is some yet to be released online like sci-fi game. I don't know.
That is insane.
I can't remember the name either.
Yeah, it's something Star because like every Star game that comes out, I'm like, oh, is that it? It's like, oh wait, no.
Hey, just edit this in after the fact. The name of the game is there.
Now we know what we're talking about.
Now we know what we're talking about.
I probably won't remember, but yeah, it's the Kickstarter. So you're hurting by Kickstarter because some people are starting to feel a little offish about Kickstarter, partially because people go into it not understanding what Kickstarter is. I think the
appeal is gone a little bit. It used to be novel, like
it did used to be a big
neat.
Novel thing.
I can help you out and spend money, and then it's like after a while, it's like, I've already done that, or that's not anything new. I think only a certain type of people are still around on Kickstarter and are still into it. But there was an initial wave where it was this new cool thing to do. And I think some people are just over it. And I think that happens a lot with online communities in that if there's something new and novel, a ton of people will run in and be like, this is a cool thing. This is a cool way to do it. And then it'll die down. And a lot of people are still there. Like there will always be an active Kickstarter, an active Indiegogo group of people, but kind of the influx of people has died down.
Yeah, and I think maybe some people feel there's the other part of people who don't understand how it works, and either themselves put money into a project that didn't turn out like they wanted, or turn out at all, or heard other cases of people just taking the money and running.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, well, it's a scam. I'm not going to put my money into it. And I would like to think that that's not many people. And to be fair, I don't really have any data on any of this. So this is all just kind of guessing. But I think that's happening. And just like you say, people are like, at first it was like, oh, that's cool. I can totally throw money into this and help the small guy make the game or make whatever it is that they want to make. But I think another part of it is there's so many indie Kickstarters now.
Yeah.
It's like if you put into it, you don't put in for the $20, $30, $40, $50 tier. It's like, well, I just want just enough to get the game.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the way it should all work. Like that should be the most common tier. Like they're always going to come up with crazy stuff to do on the upper tier. But at the end of the day, 95% of the people just want to know how much that copy's going to cost me if I help you out now.
Right.
Because it's really just like the understanding is it's a non-guaranteed pre-order at the lowest price.
And many people think it is a guaranteed pre-order. And they need to be educated.
Now you can basically figure out the probability that it'll come out. And if you look at the game, a lot of games be like, there is a very high probability this will come out. Like there's established people in the industry.
Yeah.
But you can look at something and I've seen them too, like just made up entirely of overly optimistic people who've never made a game in their life.
Yeah.
And the art doesn't look good.
Yes.
And it's like, that'll never happen. Like, and I think that's the big thing is that it's a lot of people can hammer out a game and be a developer, but it takes a special kind of artist to make game art work well in a game. Like, and if you don't have the art there, it's really gonna be a tough sell, because I think people see the art and they visualize what this game could look like, and if they can't make that visualization work, then that's not gonna get funded.
Yeah, I think that's why a lot of indie games fall back on the pixel art, and this is going to piss a few people off.
It's going to piss me off, man.
Getting all pissy about the pixel art thing. But let's be honest, pixel art is far easier to do than art like this Banner Saga.
Yeah, and it is tired. I mean, it's overdone.
Yeah, like, I've gotten sick of it about a year ago.
Yeah, it happens a lot, and it was novel when it first started. But I feel like there are games that do new things with pixely art that are written off unfairly. Like I've seen people write off Nidhogg, and I feel like that has a really interesting specific style that is pixely, but I wouldn't consider just like run-of-the-mill pixel art.
To be fair, I saw pictures of it and I was like, this looks awful.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen it in motion, but like from the pictures, I looked at it and I was like, dear God, it looks god awful.
Well, I think
maybe it's better in motion.
It is definitely better in motion, but I mean, I think, I could see how somebody would say like that looks awful, but I think it looks good. Like I don't know, it is a very different style, and it uses a lot of solid colors, but like the color palette it uses, across each of the 4 arenas that you fight in are a unique tone that goes with the music, and it's like, I don't know, it works. Like I think it's excellent. Like, and I've seen like very angrily disparaging like anti-reviews for that game. And I don't know why it's such a passionate topic for people. Like,
I think as people are like me, I'm just getting so tired of it. And I'm tired of being told like it's a bullet point now. Oh, retro graphics. Ooh, pixel art. It's like it's not a benefit.
You can like not like that and not be angry about it either.
Well, I'm not really angry about it, but like, I think people's tones tend to be sound rougher on the internet. But like, I definitely make fun of pixel art a lot.
Yeah,
and I'll say about how I'm sick of seeing it, but I'm not like angry about it.
I guess it's just annoyed when people get worked up about it. It's just like, why is it called pixel art? Like, and 1 star, it's run of the mill, it's stupid. Like I just feel like that person's never happy.
Those are the same people who won't buy a game just because it doesn't have Steam achievements.
Probably.
But despite me being totally sick and tired of pixel art, I will still play a game if it's fun. It's just when I see it, I automatically go, ugh. Like, I'm just so over it. Like,
well, it's a big negative to you.
Yes. Yeah, but I will overcome that. If the game is fun, I'll play it anyway. But,
But I guess the topic at hand isn't just about crowdfunding for these games.
No.
I think the kind of thing we're trying to say here is that the barrier of entry towards on both sides has been lowered. It's easier to develop games, therefore it's cheaper to buy games. There's more games to play, and so there's a lot more players. Like there's a lot more people making games and a lot more people playing games.
Right.
And because of that, I feel like it's harder for these developers to get seen.
Yeah.
Because there's still, as a gamer, there's only so many channels of coverage that you can take in, whether it's podcasts, whether it's blogs, or whatever. You're going to read a lot of the blogs that are going to all decide to cover the same thing. Like there's a lot of sameness to video game coverage. And so it's really hard to kind of get over that threshold where the mainstream outlets where everybody's getting their news from are going to cover you. And so I agree that is an interesting problem. But at the same time, I think if you have a very novel game and it's a very excellent game, that you're going to get the coverage you need. Like, you just have to be proactive about it.
That's the thing is, I guess you could counter that and say you have to be proactive about it. I guess I don't know. Like my go-to example there is the Swapper. That was a puzzle game last year that I absolutely loved. The graphics looked great. The atmosphere was awesome. Like the music and the sound effects. The puzzles were right on that good border of you start to get frustrated and then you figure it out and you feel smart. And I really, really liked that game. It's one of my favorite games of 2013. And it got good reviews, but I don't think it sold all that well. I don't get the impression it sold that well. I don't hear people talking about it.
It
very
didn't
much.
get as much coverage as it deserved.
No, it didn't.
I don't know if anybody's listening to this and they hate Giant Bomb. I talk a lot about Giant Bomb, but I love that site.
I hate Giant Bomb.
I know. People do.
I don't.
But
actually have an opinion.
Anyway, I think one person that has a really good combination of like, he's got a big platform. A lot of people listen to him. And he plays a lot of weird random games is Patrick Klepek. Like, and he was one of the people that is like, you know, the Swapper's awesome. Like, he was talking about it. It was on game lists, you know. But that guy live streams and plays a ton of random games I've never heard of. Like, if you mention a game like the Swapper, the first person I heard talking about it is generally Patrick Klepek.
Yeah.
So, if you want to kind of better your sources, I mean, just follow him on Twitch. Like, because about every day he's just live streaming games he's playing.
One thing I think, kind of off topic here, but one thing you have to be careful of on that is there's too many people out there that are like, this game is weird, it's indie, so I like it. Like, there's so many times where I can like watch or read somebody playing a game, and you can tell they're like stretching to try to find things to like about it so they can have an overall positive opinion about it.
Yeah.
And so, oh, you should go check this out.
Like, people that think it's cool to like weird games just because they're weird.
Right. Or it just they want to promote indie games because they're indie games, which, you know, in theory is a good idea.
That's not the worst, like,
no,
thing
that's
to
not,
do.
But if you're looking, the point is, and this kind of goes back to our main point, is if you're looking for games to play, you want ones that are actually good. Not, well, I didn't really enjoy this game, but it's an indie game, so I'm going to say that it was fun regardless.
Yeah.
Right? So
I think there's a subset of gamers that there's pressure to like art games just for the sake of art games.
I will say, by the way, if we're speaking of plugs, indiegamerchick.com. Like, I don't read the site a lot, but the young lady who runs that site, she is awesome. Like, she has absolutely no problem ripping into indie games that she thinks are bad, or even if it's good but has flaws, she has absolutely no problems with ripping into games. So I like that site for, like, I think she mostly covers like Xbox Live type games, but I think she does PC as well sometimes. So I guess my point there is you just have to pick and choose who you listen to, because there are people out there who review indie games, and people complain about the IGN scale of 8 to 10, and it seems with them their scale is 9 to 10.
Yeah.
So it can be difficult finding someone, because this goes back to people have limited amount of time and money to spend on games.
Yep.
That's why I think it's important that you listen to people that are at least of your mindset, or at least show off the game fairly so that you can make a decision on if you want to buy that game or not. Because if you've been a PC gamer for the last couple of years, or even recently, you know how easy it is to now have this huge backlog of games. And initially, when Steam started all these sales, it was like, buy everything. And because, this game's $5. Like,
yeah,
I might
why would I not get that game for 25 cents or whatever it is?
Right, exactly. Or even $5, or at the time, $10.
Mm-hmm.
But, and I don't think I'm the only one here. In fact, this is probably pretty common, where now I'm starting to be like, okay, like, I don't care if it's $5. My backlog, according to some sites, my Steam backlog is like 50% of the Steam games I have I've never even played.
Yeah.
I've got games that I bought like 3 years ago on this first like Steam sale that I've never played. Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, now unless I am like 99% sure I'm going to play this game soon, within the next month or 2 or 3, I don't care if it's $1 or $5. I'm not going to buy it. So I can definitely see that starting to be a problem again for indie gamers. Like, well, who cares if your game is $3 or $4 or $5? My backlog is already crazy. I don't really want to buy any more games because I'll never end up playing it. So I'm wondering how pervasive this problem is. And that's if you can even get your game on Steam. And I think even that floodgate is going to not be as good as it used to be. because with indie devs, and we've seen several blogs from these indie game devs who've confirmed this, is you might be able to eke out a living maybe off of Steam, unless you're Mojang, and nobody but Mojang is. Then you really need to get on Steam. But then once you get on Steam, that really, really helps your sales. And that does still seem to be the case. But now Steam is letting through like 100 games at a time on your Steam Greenlight because there's so many games. Now we're going to go right back to, it's great that you're on Steam, but you're still getting lost in the shuffle of so many games.
And I think what Steam is going to have to do, and I think one thing that Apple has done really well with their App Store is they have dedicated curation people. And so like they have people who its job was to highlight and feature specific games or apps that are good. Like if you go to the App Store on your iPhone or on your iPad and you go to the game section, you'll see a fresh like cycle of high quality things that are generally worth playing. But the funny thing is they had this problem and they decided, let's do Steam Greenlight and let's crowdsource the curation,
the voting process,
but now their requirements are so low, I guess, that they come in these huge waves of 100 or 200 that they're right back to where they started. So I don't think there's any replacement for like people whose job it is to curate. You can crowdsource the curation all you want, but you're going to end up at the same place where everyone thinks everything is great.
But the problem for indie devs in that case is still going to be the same, right? Where you're letting less games in, just because what if there were just all 100 of those games? And keep in mind, those 100 games are still voted on by the community. So it's still the top 100 games voted on by the community. And so it's not just like, well, we picked 100 random games and
I think it should be like the top, 25 games. I just feel like 100 per wave
is a lot.
Is too many. Like, that is just making the problem exist. It's just that the problem still exists. You haven't solved anything.
Right.
When 100 games at a time are coming in every couple months.
But for a lot of games, it's important to be on Steam, period. Because a lot of times I've heard devs say, I like your game, I'll buy it when it's on Steam.
But now that's true. But like, now that we've lowered the barrier entry to Steam, you're at the same problem you had where you're not getting seen.
You missed that problem? Or you still have that problem of not being seen by people who don't know about your game? But the people who were interested in it before, but want to have, because one of the main reasons a lot of people love Steam is because it keeps all your games together. Mm-hmm. You don't have to keep your discs. You don't have to have
that's true. 4
different clients. It's one game or one thing all tied together.
So there's a lot of people who won't play a game unless it's on Steam.
Right.
If they know about that game, they've discovered that game, they want to play that game. They'll wait until it's on Steam.
Yeah, and that's why you see a lot of developers now say, if you buy my game from the Humble Store or whatever, then we'll give you a Steam key as soon as we're on Steam, to kind of reassure those people that, yes, as soon as we get there, we'll get you that key so that you can have it set up.
And actually that, I guess a quick thing about Humble Store, they've made a lot of really awesome improvements to that, so that if you get a Hundo Bundle now, you can link your account to Steam.
Yeah.
And you just get those games on your Steam account. Like,
that's
no longer have to enter in codes and all that stuff. So that they've done and they also have multi-factor authentication on Humble Store now, which is pretty awesome. Like, it automatically added a token to my phone and everything. It set it up on it. It was really well done. But yeah, I still feel like one half of the problem is that, people use Steam as a game collection or game aggregation service, and that it does a really good job of that. But there's still the discovery problem of finding out about games. And Steam as a seller, I don't think they're trying to be good at that. They're really just trying to be a marketplace.
Yeah,
and they're relying on other, like, people need to get their news from places to find out about games. Whereas Apple is like, we're going to require, we're going to basically put our storefront as a way for people to see games they can get. So maybe they can still use crowdsourcing to get on the platform and to get on there quickly. But if they do a good job of highlighting which games are worth playing.
Yeah.
I still feel like if you go to I don't go to the storefront to look around. I don't browse on the Steam storefront. And I don't know if that is just because of the way I do things or if just the interface is no good for that. But every now and again, I'll look at the App Store.
One thing that I wish Steam would do, I've wished this a few times, was I wish you could create a wish list for someone else.
Yeah.
Because there's people that I know that are new to like PC gaming or new to Steam even. And I wish I could go through and go, okay, you need to get this, 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 and this.
Mm-hmm.
And either suggest it for the wish list and maybe they get some kind of notification. Or like Amazon has like those, you can make a wish list and just share it with like one person. Something like that where I can make a wish list for someone else. I think a suggestion thing would be better though. Because you want your wish list all in one area. And maybe say suggested by Johnny on this side. And I think that would be a great idea to get games out there. They have the reviews now, so they could do what you're talking about. It's like, okay, this game has 98% good reviews. Let's feature that game today or this week on the little cycle thing.
And I actually posted, I've done 2 reviews recently. I did Nidhogg and I did Kickbeat. And I posted my reviews in Steam. Mm-hmm. But the only thing is, Steam doesn't have like 5 stars. You either recommend it or you don't recommend
I hate
it. It's
that.
thumbs up or thumbs down. And to me, that is just too rigid
that's
to convey quality. Like, because like for me, Kickbeat, it was a 6.5. And so technically it was higher than 5. So I gave it the thumbs up. But there's a big conditional on that recommendation. It's based on if you like that genre and if it's the kind of game you want,
Yeah, people piss and moan about the 10-point scale, which is absolutely fine. But people piss and moan about it. A yes/no system is far, far worse.
Yeah,
like it's absolutely terrible because there's plenty of games where I can say, if you really like this type of game, you should try it, or you should try this game if it drops below this price point. If it's above this price point, it's not worth it. So I think a 10-point scale helps with that a little bit. Because if you see a game that's like 6 to 7, it's like, okay, that game might be worth it. Maybe I'll read the reviews. Maybe I'll wait until it's a lower price. But just no immediately kicks off a negative reaction in your brain. And you think, oh, that game sucks. I'm not going to play it. It got a negative.
And there are games that I've played and had fun with that were 4s or 5s.
Yeah.
And those, I guess, depending on how you round, could be thumbs down on Steam.
Right, exactly.
And yeah, I just, that's one thing that I really like that they implemented a review system. And it has the ability for people to say, like, I found this review helpful.
Yes.
And I've even gotten, like, friend requests from people, like, because I posted that review. Like, I was able to post it on the day of release. And so I got a lot of people that either found it helpful or not helpful. But I got a lot of feedback on it. And I think it's good to get feedback based on reviews you post. Because some sites I've posted reviews for products or whatever, and it's like a vacuum. You're just like, okay. I like how Amazon does it. Right. They also have the I found this review helpful, and it helps that system to be more effective because the really good ones will bubble up to the top, and so you can see the most. Yeah.
Unfortunately,
sometimes the most entertaining ones will bubble up to the top.
Unfortunately, I'm starting to see a trend of people putting really stupid reviews.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I played this in my shark pants today, and my mommy, blah, blah, blah. Just, like, obviously just joking around, and that would be, like, one of the top 3 comments. It's like,
yeah,
I wish you could just flag those, and so that, and of course, I'm sure Valve doesn't want that extra overhead.
Yeah.
But, like, flag it so they could go through and just delete them. Because, like, I mean, that whole, like, being funny on a review thing, that stopped being funny, like, years ago.
Yeah, and I think that's, whenever you crowdsource stuff, there's going to be weird things like that you have to control. Like,
yeah,
it's not going to be, this magical thing where all the content is amazing because you're getting it for free, and unpredictable patterns are going to come up with how that data bubbles up. But
yeah, but so back to the problem that indie game devs have is it's just an uphill battle, because it used to be if you get kickstarted, you're good to go, or if you can get on Steam, like you've maybe not made it, but that's like
it used to be
90% of the journey.
It used to be like I read a statistic before Greenlight, and it was something like 1 out of 50 games submitted to Steam makes it, or 1 out of 100. I mean, it was a big deal to get on Steam, and because of Greenlight, it's still a deal. Like
right.
It's not like anybody can put any crap on there, but the barrier to entry has been lowered for Steam.
Right, and with it, the competition is getting worse. Not to mention getting eyeballs on your game and getting people to want to spend the money on your game is harder. And that, leads to yet another problem where now people have become conditioned to $5 and $10 games being like the norm.
Yeah.
So if you're a typical indie game and, you don't have like some kind of long Mass Effect type game with, superb graphics and full voice acting and 50 to 60 hours of gameplay, if people complaining, oh, it's over $10 to $15, I'm going to wait till it goes on sale. And I see on Twitter people complaining that man, this is the most insulting thing you can say to a developer is either wait till it gets on Steam or wait till it's on sale. Insulting or not, that's the way people feel. So I mean, it whether you're insulted or not doesn't matter. But a lot of people are looking at it that way, and I've been guilty of it too, where I see a game and it's like $15, and I'm like, I'll wait till it's on sale.
Yeah.
Unless I just really, really want it. So now you have, not only is it, hard to get on, hard to get noticed, but now you got people not going to pick it up until you can get it on sale.
I think the thing that bothers me is when people think like a game is too expensive and they assume that the indie developer is pricing it out of greed. I think that's dumb. Like, if you're the kind of person who's a greedy person, you're not an indie developer. Like,
probably not.
If you're grinding it out and there's 1 or 2 people making a game, like they, there are so many games that never make back their money that they spent on development. And so when they posted at $15 or $10, it's because they gave like a couple years of their life to put this thing together. So it's, you're, by all means, you have every right to wait until it's at a price point you agree with. But, I think it is tactless to assume that it's based off of greed or something like that.
Right. Yeah. I tend to think those are probably more younger / stupid people.
Yeah.
So I don't give that much weight at all.
Yeah.
But
which is always the best policy to have with the internet.
Yes.
To not give weight to idiots.
Yes. But I don't know, the price point could, again, generates the question is like, well, can these developers make these games with the anticipation that they're going to sell them for $10? And you look at stuff like, I should link this in the YouTube video, but if you do a search, the developer for Cook Serve Delicious and a few others have done blogs on what Steam means to their sales. And if you're one of those that, gets on a good daily sale, especially during the big sales like Thanksgiving and the winter sales, that will help a ton. But it depends on if you get it. Like the Cooks Are Delicious just happened to be voted in as one of the sales. And I think it was even really late at night, like 3 a.m, so he didn't expect much. But it sold like gangbusters. And it actually flowed into the next day. Even when it went off sale, it actually kept selling really, really well, which was an interesting statistic to see how well it sold even immediately after it went off sale. But it's there's just so many games you can't even put them all on sale anymore, and a lot of times it's now you have to vote which one that you want to go on sale. So it's
crazy because I feel like this is a problem that's unique to PC gaming. Like, the barrier to entry for consoles is a lot higher.
Right.
Like, you have to have that license from the manufacturer to get on this system, and both Microsoft and Sony are very particular about games that come out on digital release. And the system by which they release these things digitally is way more complicated and less streamlined than Steam is.
Yes.
So, like, from what I've heard on interviews and podcasts, the people that have to pull all the switches to make a release happen on Sony, on PSN, and on Xbox Live, there's a lot going on. Whereas Valve they're ahead of everyone when it comes to digital distribution. They've got so many tools and methods to automate that. But, this is a problem that's unique to PC gaming. And so, in some ways, PC games can act as the testing grounds for what would work on the console. Like, I think you're going to see a lot more wait and see for some of the console releases of indie games. So, like, it's going to come out first on PC, and then things that are proven to work, they might shuffle in to consoles. Yeah. Or it could also be because it's easier to write that game for the PC.
Right.
Yeah. So it's the first platform that's going to hit because the developer says, like, this is the easiest thing to implement, and then I'll implement the console-specific APIs.
Right, and then even stuff like, before you get on Steam, you can just send a demo to your buddy and say, hey, try this out, or throw it out on a social network and say, hey, try my game out, as opposed to getting it to people on Xbox or PlayStation. Yeah. It's nowhere near that easy to do. Yeah. So I think that's, it's helping PC gaming in general. But yeah, I mean, from the developer's perspective, I'd love to have, like, especially the developer of Cook Serve Delicious, I'd like to have him on. But I'd like to hear.
I'm sure he's listening right now.
He probably is. Yeah. But I'd love to hear from their perspective, especially people who are releasing games now.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're competing against other developers because you've only got so many games you can play, but you're competing for space. You're competing for word of mouth because, again, the sites and the game personality type people can only cover so many games for so much at their time. And then even if you get on Steam, or even if you get on Greenlight at all, and then even if you can get the votes to get onto Steam proper, I think you're still running into the issue of, can I sell enough of my game to do this as a job? Because I think it's safe to assume most indie devs want to do this. Mm-hmm. At least all the ones I have pretty much ever read, they want to make this their career. So the question is, barring a streak of good luck, can the average indie game developer who gets onto even Steam, can they make a living now?
It used to be that if you're on Steam, you were making a living, but not anymore with Greenlight. Like, I feel like it's kind of the equivalent of, like, somebody driving out to LA and, like, I want to be an actor. Like, guess what? Statistically, you're not going to make it. Like, it's getting the PC gaming world has a serious noise issue, like the signal to noise ratio, and that there's so many options. There's so many developers and there's so many games that are hitting every week. And as a gamer, you have more things to keep up with. And so there's way more, I mean, in a way that can be very fun because it's really interesting to have all these choices.
Yeah.
But, sometimes so many choices can be overwhelming.
Right.
Because if you walk into a supermarket and you need salt or you need anything, you need something simple. It used to be you would go there and there was like 2 brands,
Yeah.
Now you go in there and there are like just an ungodly amount of condiments that you have to choose from. Like, choice is good to a certain point, and then it gets overwhelming.
Right.
And so I think it really is difficult but important to have a good aggregate of sources if you're a PC gamer. So, basically the blogs you read, the podcasts you listen to, the people whose voices you listen to is the most important thing that you can do as a gamer to make sure that you're playing the games that give you the most fun. I mean, so I think that is a specifically PC gaming topic, because especially like if you're a console gamer and you have a PS4 right now, I mean, you don't have much to go on.
Yeah.
Like both.
I hope you really like Resogun.
Both next gen consoles. I mean, you've got to play the waiting game for kind of that development cycle to kick in, so that you're getting a steady stream of things. But I mean, this is one, I guess, side of game development. I guess the opposite side is the increased development cycle for AAA titles.
Yeah.
And I think that is going to be a different but just as interesting topic to see. A lot of developers are finding that, with each console generation, each jump in graphical ability, or fidelity that you have in a game, the development times become longer and longer because the size and complication of those assets that go into every game require more and more people to make what we consider like the AAA experience.
Right.
And so while the barrier of entry is getting lower and lower for indie devs, and there are more and more indie games, I don't know if there's fewer and fewer, but it's getting more and more expensive.
Yeah.
So the stakes get higher and higher for AAA games. And so like crazy things happen, like Tomb Raider sold, what was it, like 3 million or something, and then Square Enix put out that press release. It's like, yeah, that was below expectations.
Yeah. Well,
they lost money. They finally got to the point where they made money on it.
Right.
But they were not profitable after what I considered a very successful launch. And so these games have higher and higher stakes for their release.
And, the unfortunate side thing to that is, people wonder, well, I guess they don't wonder, but, they get mad when they see annualized properties like Assassin's Creed and, a lot of pandering to lowest common denominator type gaming. But this is why. Like, this is exactly why, because, it's great. I mean, Tomb Raider looked phenomenal, and it was a lot of fun to play. Had the full voice acting and all that. I mean, no indie studio could have hoped to have covered a tenth of what that game was. I mean, whether you like the game or not, there's no way any decent-sized indie game company would come up with graphics that look that good, or a game world that large with all the different gameplay options and what have you, and hidden objects and all that other crap within anything close to a reasonable time frame. It just wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
So, and I want to see more games like that. I mean, I want to see both sides. I'm not an indie gamer. I'm not a retro gamer. I'm just a gamer. I want good games, whether they're.
I want you to play all the games.
Yes, which I think is so silly when people go, "Well, I just like indie games." I'm like, "Well, why?" It's like, why would you cut off fantastic games? I know it's totally the hipster thing to do. It's like, triple A, more like triple Z. It's like, come on. It's like. There's plenty
that's a pretty dumb hipster. Come on, that's not even clever, hipster. You can come up with something better than that.
But there's so many good AAA games, or AA. I don't know what you would consider Dark Souls, but it's a small
triple B,
or double A plus. I don't know, AAA minus. Who knows? Anyway, the point is, I want to see more games that are that fleshed out, that look that great graphically, that have that much, good voice acting and that length of a game and all of that extras in it. But I am a little worried because, like you say, it had a good launch, it had good reviews, and it took them quite a while to turn a profit on it.
But that's exactly why you do see annualized properties, is because they got to get the mileage out of that engine.
Right.
The first Assassin's Creed game didn't review very well. It sold all right. It sold well, but I don't even know if this is public, but there was no way the first Assassin's Creed was profitable. But that made a really good platform for an engine to make Assassin's Creed 2, Assassin's Creed 2 Brotherhood, Assassin's Creed 2.3, whatever they call them. But they iterated on those engines that they made, and the Assassin's Creed property became hugely profitable. And at the end of the day, as a gamer, you do have to realize that games are a business. I I mean, there are
even
also
with indie devs, it's a business.
Yeah, like there are with some indie devs, they really are like struggling artists. Like they put that stuff out there. But like majority of the games you see like have to be profitable. And it is good for our industry to do things that aren't stupid, that are profitable, that remain profitable. Like if you look at some things like UDraw, that stupid thing sunk THQ. And THQ was...
Rest in peace.
Yes. THQ had some good properties. Like
Saints Row.
Yep. There was some wrestling games. I wasn't into those, but there was a lot of people that loved them. There was the...
South Park.
Yeah. Oh, man. I hope that game comes out someday.
Darksiders? Mm-hmm. I'm still angry about Darksiders.
Yeah.
Like and, somebody needs to pick that up.
The 40K RTS games. Dawn of War.
Oh, I haven't played those, but I heard they're good.
Those are really good. So THQ had a lot of, and I'm probably forgetting even more.
Oh, yeah.
But that game, that company got sunk by something really stupid. So, you know, there are definitely things we poke fun at about, you know, how mediocre annualized games can be and how AAA games can sometimes not feel very inspired because it's really entertainment by committee. You know, It's not going to have as focused of a message or as a tone as like an indie game. But like all those things it's a varying spectrum that we get to choose from as a gamer. So they're good things, but you know, it doesn't have the noise problem like the PC games have. But
the indie games in particular.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's pretty obvious that if there's going to be any envelope pushing, it'll be by indies.
Yeah,
and you know,
and it's all like trickle down. Like they push the dev. But recently, I think this became topical because somebody, you know, Capcom has retooling its engine completely for next gen. So like they used I forget the name of the engine, but they used the same engine for a lot of games. Like and it was versatile. Like Street Fighter 4, Dead Rising. Like games you wouldn't consider on the same engine. That's
insane.
Yeah, but they were running on the same engine. And so that engine didn't age well. And it was not, they weren't going to retool it for next gen. So they're building a brand new engine from scratch.
Wow.
Like, and so like companies like that will take in a huge amount of money, but they have to spend a huge amount of money on risks like that. And so, you know, if that engine doesn't work out for Capcom, it could be a pretty big deal. But it's going to take, you know, a long time before we see the first game on that engine.
Yeah, and, you know, these companies, again, just like you're saying, if people don't think about this, there can be, you know, tons of money on the line. And like you say, to the point that if it goes belly up, it could cause serious problems for the company as a whole. So it's much safer to, we could do a whole new property, make a whole new engine, you know, get new assets for this other property that might or might not take off, or we can make another Assassin's Creed. Mm-hmm. And I like to see companies diversify a bit and say, okay, well, we want to split off a bit. So we'll make Assassin's Creed 4, but we'll also take some money and we'll make Remember Me. It was Capcom that did it, right? Didn't they have something to do with that?
I don't know.
But you know what I mean, right? So it's you have a little bit of money going to stuff that's an almost sure hit, and stuff that's like, okay, let's experiment a little. Let's try to make, you know, new ground, or even resurrect one that didn't do so well, like with Mirror's Edge with EA.
Or I mean, you do a lot of movie studios do this, where they'll have like 20th Century Fox that's like making the huge, you know, July 4th summer blockbusters or whatever. But then they have a subsidiary of that company, like Fox Searchlight, that is backing and publishing indie movies. So they will go out there and they have people whose job it is just to work on these, work with these indie movies, basically directors, writers, and everything. And so I don't know, you might see something like that happen where these, you know, Ubisoft, EA, Activision, will have kind of like indie offshoot companies that will just work with the talent on these people, you're still seeing a lot of diversity. So there's good and bad on that, because the good is that it could make as a whole those different companies a lot more stable, because I mean, it's not important to us as gamers, the stability of these companies, but at the same time, there's people that get laid off all the time. Like, it is a very volatile industry. It is way harder to be a game developer than any other type of software developer. I mean, you are much more at risk to, if a project doesn't work out, then you don't have a job. And that happens a lot. I mean, I think you see a lot of game companies they're all in the Bay Area, or they're all in California, and so something like that happens. It's not as hard to land on your feet. But if you're like some of these developers in Montreal or Austin, Texas, or Maryland, they get laid off. It's pretty rough for them to. Yeah, they might have to relocate there and redo. But all that to say, stability on some of these indie companies is an important topic, and that might be the benefit to having kind of smaller offshoots of these bigger companies. But at the same time, there is a huge benefit to just having a huge array of possibility from all these artists making games, that if they, anybody can make a game in their basement. And that's still what's so exciting about that. Like, if you want to technically anybody can make a movie, but it takes a huge effort to get that movie at a movie theater where people can go see it. And so, of any medium, I feel like, well, music is pretty low too, but like, games have a really low barrier to entry for somebody to play a game. Anybody can make it. And I think this is kind of like the noise in the indie game space is kind of like the requisite overhead of that potential. Right. So it's just something we have to be smart about and keep our ears close to the ground to understand which games are worth playing.
Right, and in the genres that you enjoy.
Yeah. And that's where community comes in. I mean, if you have a genre that you love, chances are there's a community for you. Yeah. Like, there's just forums, there's IRC channels where you can just be with those people that hang. I mean, there's still local meetups of, if you're into shmups or fighting games, there's still people that meet physically to play these games. Wow. And I think that's weird. Cool. I know.
What a bunch of weirdos. Yeah. But, I think and of course, like, roguelikes in particular right now are getting tons of love.
Yeah, I know you're a huge fan.
Oh, yeah, totally. Roguelikes. But, in fact, the Humble Bundle right now is roguelikes. I was like, oh, look, it's roguelikes. Close tab.
Man, there's this pixel art roguelike you should check out. I think you would love it.
Those are rare.
And it's about it's by this one person. It's about the prison system, and it really makes you think. So you should check it out.
That's not even pixely. But yeah, it's I guess the kind of drawing to a close, I guess, on this is that it's really interesting how the
I don't think
game
we
artists
even had a specific point. I think it's just one of those things. Isn't this a weird thing to think about? It's a weird time to play games.
I don't think it's weird. It's just amazing.
Yeah,
it just sucks awesome. If you want to make. Oh, I would say it sucks. It sucks if you want to make them and make that your career as an indie developer. Yes, I think it's so hard to. And let's be honest, there's a lot of people out there who are making indie games that are just bad. Yeah, right? And too many people too have hopped onto the thing of, oh well, it innovates, it changes something. It's like, well, that doesn't make your game any fun to play. You can make something totally different than anything else, and it could just suck to play. So just innovating by itself isn't enough.
And sometimes there are reasons why trends come up in gameplay. It's like, oh, this is completely different. It's like, well, this is an established norm because it works. Like, yeah. So there's definitely a balance to that.
Yeah, and it's really interesting going to be seeing. Yeah, it's going to be interesting going forward. I want to see what Steam's going to do, or Valve's going to do with Steam, because Gabe himself has said he doesn't like Greenlight. He doesn't like its way it's turned out. Yeah, So it's going to be interesting. I think really the only way they could do it is to move to some kind of a curated system. But Valve seems to be very hands off about that. They seem to be very much like, you guys should do it. Not necessarily because they're lazy, but because I think they see more value in the community doing it, because they see the value of the community doing mods and hats. Like, I forget how much money they gave out over about mods, like hats and stuff. It was insane.
Yeah.
It was nuts. And, we have the user reviews, we have the green light system. During the major sales, we have, vote for which one you want next.
Yeah.
They, and the Steam trading cards, trying to, encourage trading. I think they seem to me to just like the idea of having the community take care of a lot of this. And of course, as a business too, they don't want to have to hire people to do the curating as well. Mm-hmm. But I just get the impression that they just like the idea of the community kind of taking care of itself in that.
Yeah, that utopia.
Yes, that utopia that doesn't ever work.
But I think it's also going to be interesting to see what the new generation of consoles is going to do, because both Sony and Microsoft have initiatives for getting even more indie games on their platforms faster and easier. So like Microsoft has the ID at Xbox, like the indie developers. So they have this whole like group of people, and then Sony has people that they have brought on for the sole purpose of courting indie devs. Like, fly to their studios and talk to them in person. And there are multiple people that just in person will go have lunch with these indie devs. Like, and I mean, these are not the indie devs you think of when we're talking about like Steam Greenlight, of true struggling people that aren't. These are like, Jonathan Blow and like people that are like, they've made it, So
the upper echelons of the.
But I think the point is they both want to try to have more indie games available on their systems, and it'll be interesting, since both of them are x86 platforms. It's probably going to be easier to port over to those systems than it was in the last generation.
I've heard Xbox One in general is harder to code for, though.
It does have some uniqueness with the way it does like that weird ESRAM stuff, and but they're still the same like architecture. So it will be easier to go to Xbox One than it was Xbox 360.
Right.
But it'll be easier to go to PS4 than Xbox One.
Well, did you hear about the Tomb Raider thing? Apparently the Tomb Raider Definitive Edition is coming to both Xbox One and PS4. And the PS4 version is going to be 60 FPS. The Xbox One is 30 FPS. They've confirmed this.
I think that's going to happen for a while. Like, I don't know. I don't think Xbox One's ever going to catch up.
You think it'll always be behind?
Yeah, because I mean, the more they'll both optimize. I mean, it'll narrow the gap a little bit as people plumb deeper into the Xbox One, but I think the memory bandwidth is a big deal too.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess the question is, obviously, as developers learn both systems will become more efficient. Or, games for both systems will become more efficient.
Yep.
But I think theoretically, from what I know, which isn't much, is that hitting that cap or that near cap, and there's a better word for this, but I guess the quickness that it will improve on PS4, that curve, isn't as steep as for the Xbox One, maybe. Yeah. Because I get the impression that because of the programming difficulties, once that's holding the people back a lot, maybe on Xbox One, or at least that's the hope of a lot of people. And that once this big hurdle is jumped, okay, maybe the PS4 is still going up or improving, and it's better overall, but it's like really close.
But I think ultimately, or I guess not ultimately, but one of the other big issues with the Xbox One is the overhead of the operating system.
Right.
Because from what I've read, the Xbox One is doing more things, on an operating system level, is doing more things than the PlayStation 4 is. And this all goes down to what they were making when they put together the system. I mean, Microsoft wanted to make something that would be accessible to more people and would be broader approach towards media in general, whereas Sony wanted to focus on making a game platform. And so when your game is running, the operating system isn't doing as much in the background and wants to give more resources to the running game. So when a game is running on an Xbox One, the Kinect is listening, it's watching, it's doing more things, and that is taking up more cycles from the processor. And I'm not making that stuff up. Like I'm not saying I'm speaking like as a developer.
Today on Super Game Talk, Travis makes up some bullshit about the Xbox One.
But that I've read a lot of stuff about that, and it sounds like the Xbox One, like firmware, operating system, whatever you want to call it, is doing more things in the background.
Right. And that might end up holding it back.
Yeah. Now, I mean, that's not to say that not only will developers learn to optimize for the Xbox One, but Microsoft will learn to optimize their firmware for the Xbox One. But Sony will too. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, I think there's going to be a gap, but it probably will get a little lower in the future. And I don't know though. I mean, they were able to get 30 out of one and 60 out of another. It seems like
that's
a pretty big deal.
Yeah, and this happened with the 360 and the PS3 because I remember when they were both out, initial games, it was a big deal to compare them, and almost always the 360 was better, even if it was marginally, it was better. And it seemed like near the end, at least for the last 2 years or so, and I didn't keep up with it that much, but it seems like that wasn't even a deal anymore. It was pretty much you just get whichever one you want, and they were close enough that it didn't matter.
Yeah, and it's funny, towards the beginning, the majority of the reviews you read would say something about like which system you should get it for,
right,
or if it ran better on one. And towards the end, you never heard anything about that except for like the forums where people were going crazy with taking pictures this is running at 700p, this is running at 680p, like things like that. And so that definitely was interesting. And I think what's odd is that both the 360 and the PS3 were way more of apples and oranges than the PS4 and the Xbox One.
Yeah.
Like there was almost like you couldn't compare them. They're just different beasts entirely.
On a technical
level, like architecture. There's enough of an overlap between the PS4 and the Xbox One that you can specifically say this is better on one, this is better on the other. So it will be an interesting progression as to how devs learn to eke out more performance from these systems.
Yeah, that I think that's the big question is a year from now, are we still going to see this? Like, game comes out 60 FPS at a higher resolution on the PS4 than the Xbox One? I think that if that's the case, I don't think it would be devastating to Microsoft because as much as we like to go back and forth,
and nothing could be devastating to Microsoft.
Well, to the Xbox One division, I think your general person isn't going to know. Like,
I think both are very successful. Like, they're both selling very well, and I think that's good for the industry.
I think Xbox, they said like 3-point-something million was last I heard.
And I think that's totally fine that there are different types of gamers. Like, there are people that are totally like sold on and for what Xbox can bring them in terms of media features, and there are people that like the approach of the PS4 more. And I think it's cool that they both carved out a niche that is going to do well.
Right. And even like Nintendo, as much as they piss me off, I don't want to see them go under for several reasons. But, we want that third player in the market. Granted, they are not much of a factor, let's be honest. But I still think I would like to see them at least be there, kind of in case one of the other falters, or they both falter horribly, and Nintendo actually gets some decent management.
I think it's going to be really interesting to see what Nintendo does next, because they still have a lot of cash reserves. So they have the ability to like experiment and do something new. But they're working on what's next. Like, definitely, because the Wii U is not working out for them.
No.
Like, and I have read so much inane analysis on what Nintendo should do. And there's like people like Nintendo needs to make their own tablet. Nintendo needs to be in tablet gaming. That's the stupidest idea I've heard. Like,
to what end would that serve? Like, I just don't. It makes no sense.
Because tablets.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
That's the logic. Like, because tablets. Like, I don't know. This was a mainstream outlet covering games, which is always like a recipe for what are you talking about? Like, well, it's just the same kind of like there's always an article every 6 months that say like, you know, games are dying. Like, games are moving to tablets.
Yeah.
But
that's the new PC gaming is dead. That's the new PC gaming is dead. All games are going to be played on on phones. And like that's all we're going
play games on phones. I play game on tablets. Like, I'm not saying that is like there's no place for that. But there's always going to be a place for a D-pad. There's always going to be a place for WASD, and there's always going to be a place for analog joysticks. Like, that's just different ways to play different games.
And the course phone and tablet being the worst, almost always.
Pretty much, except for games specifically made for it. But
I can only handle so much Angry Birds and Candy Crush.
Yeah. See, now if they made Pokemon on a tablet. No.
Get Pokemon on your iPhone.
Yes. In-app purchases. You can buy the Pokemon.
See, I just can't handle it. Like, and there's, I think there's only been one game I could really tolerate playing on the phone for long, and that was the Game Dev Story.
Yeah.
That was fun as hell, but like anything else, like I played a while and I'm like, this is boring.
I could play Broken Age on a tablet. I feel like that could work pretty well.
I haven't played it. So.
Just like a point
maybe
and
like
click.
Point and click adventures.
Adventure.
Yeah. Like
point
that
and click
kind of stuff. Yeah.
If they re-released like
Monkey
Grim
Island?
Fandango, Monkey Island,
God,
The Dig, Full Throttle, like just old point and click adventure games, that would be pretty cool. Like,
it's just so incredibly limited with a touchpad, and especially on a phone with a smaller screen.
Yeah.
You're just so limited in what you can get away with.
But RPGs work fine on it. I've played Final Fantasy IV.
Well, yeah, like I say, there's certain genres that are fine. Like XCOM, obviously, is totally fine with a touchpad.
I still haven't played that one. I want to play it. I started XCOM Enemy Within.
Oh, yeah?
I only did like the first mission. But it's yet another game on my backlog.
Yeah. I didn't buy it yet, luckily. I am going through XCOM Enemy Unknown again, though. Yeah. Because I never did finish it. So
man, you should have just done that with Within, because you go through it again while you're playing XCOM Enemy Within.
Yeah, but I didn't really want to buy it because I already spent too much on the last two sales where I said, oh, I've got all the games I want. I won't spend any money. And still bought like 6 games. So,
games.
Yeah. Damn you, Gabe Newell.
Games.
But so I guess, long and short, again, great time to be. Anybody who says it's not a great time to be a gamer and that we've passed the golden age, ignore them. It is 100% safe.
Yeah, they're a dinosaur.
Yeah, it's just as people who like, oh, I never play any games past this Super Nintendo. It's like, well, I'm sorry. It's like, I'm sorry that your head is stuck in the past and not somewhere that rhymes with past. It's like,
it's not really rhymes with past.
It kind of does. You just kind of
all right.
But it, like, because you can still play those games, and there's so many games that have been made since then that are still absolutely phenomenal.
What I think is going to be interesting, I really like the idea of that NES remix game that Nintendo made, but like it was only available for the Wii U. I would like to see more like kind of remix of like taking, and Sony put out a patent for it, which I thought was really interesting. This idea that you basically save a state to a ROM and you like all of a sudden like fight this boss in Contra, or make this jump in Mario, like, and so you actually are playing the original game, but it uses memory states to put you right into the action of a certain point in an old game. And then that in turn is kind of a mashup of an entire game. Kind of like WarioWare, but with the real games and the real ROM.
Either. I know.
You need to LP some WarioWare.
Oh, I won't be doing any. I won't be LPing any Nintendo games until Nintendo gets their heads out of their asses about the whole YouTube thing, which apparently they've silently kind of sort of been doing. But I'm like, all right, no. Now, once
the company is so backwards in so many ways.
Yes,
you see,
which is why they're losing
Sony
money.
got their head out of their asses and it's like, let's hire some people to
to
help us figure this out and
Yes.
to reevaluate our strategy.
Nintendo
and it's
very
worked out for
desperately
them.
needs to do that.
Yeah.
Like, they desperately need to start canning asses and putting in people who know what they're doing.
Yeah. Definitely.
Because
Especially when it comes to online stuff.
Yeah, Nintendo just hates the internet.
I love my 3DS. I play so many games on it. But if I want to download or do anything online, I just cringe. It's awful. It's so backwards. I have a 16-digit friend code that if I want a friend to be my friend, he has to enter in my 16-digit friend code.
Yeah.
I have to enter in his
friend
16-digit
codes.
friend code.
Oh, my God.
I have a Nintendo Network ID. I have a Club Nintendo account. If I had a Wii U, I would have a friend code on that, I believe, and the same Nintendo Network ID. They finally put together the eShops on those, but it's like, I have 3 different accounts for my 3DS.
Yeah.
It's so stupid.
Yeah, they are in desperate need of some new management. It's like they're run by a bunch of 80-year-old guys who are like, this worked fine back in 85, it's good enough now.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's not. It's like, it's so apparent that they need to start just getting rid of people.
I think they need to be more
change.
comfortable with just they can develop games in Japan and then let Nintendo of America beef up in Nintendo of America with a bunch of people in the valley with startup mentality.
Yeah.
And just be like, you're going to do our online stuff and just tell us how we integrate it into our games. But everything still comes out of Japan, and I'm not trying to
it's a
crap
cultural
on Japan,
thing.
but it's a cultural divide, and
Yes.
they're not willing to have that startup mentality on their online stuff.
But you see, the thing is, obviously the extremists are always going to complain, oh my God, it's racist. But you see it in a lot of Japanese companies where they refuse to adapt to the new culture, the new online era, like Konami, Sega. Good Lord, Sega.
Yeah.
Just it's funny, particularly when you look at the YouTube stuff at the companies who don't want you to monetize. Almost universally, it's Japanese companies, almost entirely.
There's a unique culture of stubbornness.
Yeah.
I don't know why,
Maybe it's tradition.
where it stems from. Maybe it's traditionalism, but there's this just inflexibility, and it really requires, especially in something moving as fast as games and YouTube and new media, you have to be flexible and understand that the ways you make money are going to change all the time.
Right. And this would apply to any company anywhere in the world, is that if you're, especially these days, if you're not flexible, then you're in this market of game, the gaming market, especially when it comes to consoles and whatnot, then you're going to probably be in big trouble.
It's frustrating because I feel like Nintendo still has some amazing game designers.
I still want to play that Nintendo 3D Land, because that's supposed to be people. I don't think I heard a single negative
Mario
thing
3D
about
World.
That. Yeah,
yeah, and the new Zelda was amazing. It really, they still have it when it comes to game design, but when it comes to so many other things, they're just
need to just start making games like Sega. That shit has been going on for at least a decade too. Even before the Wii, people were saying, "Oh, Nintendo needs to just get out of the hardware business." Even while they were selling,
look at how well it turned out for Sega.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They just feel like embittered assholes to me at this point.
Yeah.
They just feel like they're a bunch of grumpy old people, and they're so angry that they're second rate now, and they're just being jerks to get back at everyone. Just their mentality towards internet stuff, their releasing of games super buggy, Rome, Total War, all the Total Wars apparently released super buggy.
I think that was more of
could have been developers.
They acquired it, and there was just too much influx in that office because they were getting acquired, and you don't get work done when you're in the middle of an acquisition.
Well, the Total War, I think I've heard that most if not all the Total Wars were pretty buggy at release, pretty bad.
But that's what I mean. They were in the middle of an acquisition, and just stuff got moved around, and people were probably not secure in their job for a while. I don't know.
Well, I don't. What's funny is, oddly enough, I don't consider Sega to be the bad guy in the whole Aliens Colonial Marine thing.
No.
Everything I've read points to 2K on that one.
Or specifically Gearbox.
Or Gearbox. Yeah, sorry. Not 2K. Yeah. Gearbox.
They did some pretty shady stuff with their money.
Yeah. Like, Randy Pitchford, like, he still has a pretty negative impression in my mind. Like,
it sounds like, I feel like there would be legal recourse for it. Like, it sounds like they did objectively illegal things. They took money from what was established to be paying for development for Aliens Colonial Marine, and they put it towards Borderlands 2 DLC.
I think that maybe that's the hard part, is proving that happened, though.
Yeah.
I think that's I think people, what I heard was it seems like that was what happened, but there was no, like, proof, like, oh, here's the smoking gun that they did this. So, yeah, I think it was mostly Gearbox just being douchey.
Let's see what they do next.
Yeah.
So, who's making the new Aliens game?
I think there's 2 Aliens games, isn't there? One in particular is an Isolation.
One looks good.
Yeah, that one looks good.
Looks really good. Who's developing that?
I don't remember. It seems like it's a small studio. I don't know if I've heard of them before, but I started following some of the developers on Twitter to kind of keep up with them.
See, I feel like that. Why is it taking this long for people to realize that if you want to make an Alien game, it's all about atmosphere? Like, nobody like wants like a super actiony Alien game. Like,
I would like a super actiony Alien game, but
I want a super moody, scary Alien game.
I want to play as an alien. Like, that's my big thing, and that's why I know this new game is going to disappoint me.
I want to be hunted.
Even going in, knowing that I can't play as one, I'll still be disappointed. Yeah. But, like, I remember there was an Alien game many moons ago. We're talking, like, God, 10, 15 years ago, probably like 15 years ago, where, like, you could play as humans and marine. You could only play as humans or aliens.
Wasn't it Alien vs Predator? The first-person shooter.
I think it was actually called something else, because I thought it was Alien vs Predator at first. But one, you couldn't play as a predator, at least in the version I played. But, like, you could even play as a face hugger or the Queen, and they had all these air vents, and all the Marines had to fight down to the Queen and kill her, but they only had so many lives, and the aliens were, like, super, super weak. So, like, you would hide in the vents and wait for them to go by and then come out and smack them and then run away. And, like, I heard all the time people play Marines saying they were scared out of their minds because, like, it'd be dark and they're, like, looking everywhere. All of a sudden they get damage and they turn around and they just start shooting.
See, like, I feel like that concept is, like, the most pure to the original property. Yeah. It's just that idea of, being scared of this alien on a ship where this alien is. It's like, that's what that game should be about.
Overwhelming odds, and the thought that, if you screw up, you're dead and your team is dead. Mm-hmm. Like, it was so awesome. It was so atmospheric. I'd love to see a game like that again. I knew there was the new Aliens vs Predator and it had the multiplayer, and I think I played the demo of it. It was all right. It wasn't great, but
the one I was thinking of is, like, about that old. Like, it's 15 or 20 years old.
Yeah, and because I remember looking it up one time, because I finally was
like about
what's the name of that game?
Same time Half-Life came out.
Yeah, like the original Half-Life.
Yeah,
it was
probably
98
about that. Maybe.
Yeah, it was crazy old, and I remember talking to people about it, and they're like, "I don't know what you're talking about," but it was. And I looked it up. Like I said, I think it was like Alien vs Predator. I had like a sub name. I really wish I could remember it, but anyway, I'm looking forward to that. Alien Isolation is what it's called, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And I think do you play? I was a little confused. Do you play as Ripley or her daughter?
I think you play as Ripley's daughter, but I'm not sure about that.
Okay, and there's only one alien, which that's the thing. That's going to be interesting to see if you can drag an entire game out where there's only one alien. I think that's going to be very difficult.
Well, there's got to be other things that you shoot.
I don't think you shoot anything in that game.
Really? There's no shooting? It's a first-person fleer?
Well, yeah, it worked for Outlast.
Yeah.
But, I don't think you...
So you just walk around and avoid the alien and read from consoles, like from.
I mean, I could see it
terminals.
being kind of like Outlast, where you have to like. There's chase sequences sometimes, and you have to like close the doors behind you and weld them shut or something. And then there's like puzzles and I don't know. It's to be interesting. That's why I'm saying I really will be interested to see if they can pull it off, because only having one enemy in the entire game and knowing you can't kill it, like how do you drag that out and make it work? I mean,
yeah,
to some extent it worked for games like Amnesia, but
yeah, I feel like if you want to like tell a narrative over a game, then you have to have these little moments of like, I beat that thing, or I got out of that situation. And it's like with first person shooters, you're like killing small enemies and you always feel like you're defending yourself. But It's like it might get stale to have an 8-hour game where you're just running all the time.
I don't think you're going to run all the time. I think it's going to be, again, I think it's going to be like Amnesia or Outlast, where there's points of time where you're like clearly in danger.
Yeah.
Like maybe you do have to run.
But those were like smaller games. Like in order for this game,
Amnesia's is like 8 hours.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I need to play Amnesia.
Yeah.
Maybe I did and I forgot.
Didn't you? I thought you had started playing that.
I had started playing
I think
yes.
I said that you should get
back to the original discussion. Too many games to play.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it was about 8 hours. But it was broken up by like puzzles. So like you weren't.
Okay, yeah. Maybe do some puzzles.
Surely,
but it's what I mean. Like you got to have something you do, and you get a sense of reward, and then you do it, and then it's like it's how you keep doing things.
Right. Yeah. Like 8 hours of running away would definitely get very tiresome and not be scary anymore. So it'll be very interesting to see how they pull that off, or if they pull it off.
And maybe they're jumping from one character to another, where one character is armed and one character is not. I don't know. We'll see. We're just speculating.
Everything I read is it's one character. Again, I know Ripley's daughter has something to do with it, but I think you actually play as Ripley. I guess that could be.
I mean, everybody loves to listen to completely blind speculation.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, at least part of mine is based on things that have been said. But I from what I've read, there was no impression that you switch characters or anything.
Okay,
that was from what I read.
It does look. I am cautiously optimistic. It's good.
Yeah. And maybe feel the same way about Dark Souls 2.
Yeah, that might be the time that I jump into Dark Souls. Who knows?
I think you should play the first one.
Yeah.
I think that should be a podcast challenge for Travis.
All right.
Travis needs to...
You've heard it here first. The first ever Super Game Talk Turbo HD Remix podcast challenge. Brought to you by
Wheat Thins.
Retro Magazine. I don't know.
Wheat Thins. I don't know.
Yeah, Wheat Thins.
Gamer Fuel Mountain Dew. But yeah, I think we, as the talkers and the listeners on Super Game Talk, need to all play together if you have not already played Dark Souls.
It is on my backlog.
At this point, you can cheat and like look up stats and like what's a good build and things like that. I think it's old enough now, with Dark Souls 2 coming out, I think it's pretty safe to say, all right, you just want to experience the game. And I mean, like I say, it's probably on my top 10 list of all time. So I don't really know what other higher praise I can possibly give to that.
That's pretty high praise. I'm gonna play it. I'm gonna go for it.
You heard it here.
Yep. All right. So next week, I'll be talking about Dark Souls.
Right, and you don't have to beat it. You just sit there.
Right.
At least play it a little bit.
In the first section, we talk about games we've played. I want to be able to say one of the games I played is Dark Souls.
You should totally let's play it.
Man, I'm no good at that. I just am the most boring let's player ever. Now I'm entering a room. Now I'm shooting this person. Wow, that was close.
It just takes time. You have to get used to talking to yourself while you're playing. Yeah. It's still very weird. I've been doing it for like 2 years. It's still very weird.
Well, I think that about wraps up episode number 7.
I think it does.
So tell the folks at home, where can we find you on the internet?
YouTube channel, which is my Vertigo Tea Party YouTube channel, where I do reviews and I do tea times as well, which are basically one-man podcasts, which I recently talked about Brad McQuaid's new MMO, about an hour long, if anybody wants to listen to that. But it's youtube.com/Vertigo Tea Party. I'm on Twitter as well. It's just Malachi VT, MALACHAI VT, or just search for Vertigo Tea Party.
And you can find me on my blog at Capanius, CAPANE.US, and on Twitter at CAPANE_US. And hopefully next week you can find me at readretro.com, where I'll be writing the best articles on the site. So
on the web,
if you
possibly
read something that's really good, just look at the author. It may or may not be Travis Brown, but that'll be me. But thanks for tuning in, and be sure to give us a plug if you can. Give us a rating on iTunes if you haven't. Subscribe. Tell your friends. Graffiti. Super Game Talk Turbo HD Remix wherever you can.
On the White House,
Yes.
preferably.
Yes. If you live near a water tower, you have some spare buckets of paint. We'd appreciate the free advertising.
Yeah, especially if you could paint the whole Super Game Talk HD Turbo Remix logo on the water tower and take a picture of it.
Yeah, to our listeners, send in pictures of graffitied our logo wherever you can.
If somebody ever actually does this, we're going to be in so much trouble.
No, we will not be in any trouble. You could tell people whatever.
It's
You're
America.
Not
We can be in trouble for anything.
Yeah, it's probably true. All right, don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. Wink, wink. But you should totally.
Maybe do it.
Maybe.